Welcome to the Job Interview Skills Workshop hosted by the Office of Career Connections. My name is Kyle O'Neill. I'm the Assistant Director of the Office of Career Connections. And my director is that lovely lady right there. It's Miss Rosalind Pogue. And a few things that our office can help you with. Obviously, we put on these workshops every fall and every spring. We also just hosted the Career Style Show 2 weeks ago. We also hosted our pre-career fair workshops and our 2014 Fall Career Fair last week. We'll have another career fair coming up in the spring career fair. Make sure if you didn't have a chance to come to the one last week, put it on your schedule for the one in the spring. But a few other things that we handle in our office, internships, both local, national, and even some international. We also do full-time jobs. We actually have an online job posting board, if you're not aware of that, where companies come and they'll post their full-time and internship positions. We've got a lot available right now out there. You've probably gotten an email from me in your inbox pretty much every Monday. If you haven't ever taken an opportunity to open it, you're doing yourself a disservice. At least open it up, especially if you're looking for a job or an internship. Because we highlight a lot of the positions that are available in those emails. So make sure that you're opening those emails and reading them. We also will help you with your job search skills and documents such as your resume or your cover letter or even a references page, things of that nature. We also have online help with interview skills, which is a great thing since we're talking about interviews. A program that we actually have in our office that you can utilize, it's a program called Interview Stream. It's a completely self-directive program. You literally go and you sit in a room. It's got a little webcam. It asks you 5 very general interview type questions, and it films you. And what it allows you to do is critique. You can do some self-critiquing, which is a great asset, a great tool. It also puts that into a file to where you can actually email that to a professor, or you can email that to myself or Rosalind, or a friend or a family member, and have them critique it as well. So that's just a really fast, easy way to do that. And also, since we're talking about interviewing, we can also just do some one-on-one mock interviews, either with myself or Miss Rosalind. We make ourselves available for y'all to do that. So all you got to do is set up an appointment and come by and see us. But when we're talking about the interview skills, there's a few things to remember. All right, first and foremost, you can pat yourself on the back, because if you've gotten a call for an interview, it means that your resume was obviously impressive enough with somebody at the company that they were interested in bringing you in for a further look. So, like I said, the employer has already looked over your resume and liked you enough to invite you for a visit. So this is your chance to really make a great first impression, and that's by being yourself. I think that's probably the one biggest stumbling block for people when they go into an interview is, they try to be someone that they're not. That's the biggest thing, is to be yourself, because that's going to be the most natural you. So always remember that. And so we talked about making that great first impression. So there's a few things that you can do. First, you've got to prepare. You've got to get ready. And we'll talk about some ways that you can do that. Second of all, once you get there, you've got to execute and you've got to do it well. And then lastly, there's some follow-up steps to your interview process that we'll cover that'll kind of help give you that edge over maybe some of the other candidates that will be interviewing for these positions. And I can't I can't stress this enough. An interview, and especially in today's economy and today's market, it is so very vital to make sure that you are really putting your best foot forward in an interview setting. It's a very tight job market. It's very competitive, and you really need to assert yourself and make sure that you're doing everything that you can to cover all of your basics, so that you're really making the best first impression and doing the very best job that you can in that interview setting. So I just like to go ahead and go through them all. So preparation is the key. Probably the easiest, most common sense thing that you need to do is make sure that you're taking time to research the company. And the internet makes that extremely easy to do these days. Back in the days for internet, it was all word of mouth, or you had to know somebody that worked at that company. Nowadays, you can go to the company's website. They'll give you the complete history of the company. They'll give you the officers of the company, that you can find the revenue of the company. Any information that you need is available to you. So make sure that you check out that company's website. Have some talking points. Be able to tell that interviewer something about the company, because a lot of times that's going to be one of the first questions that they ask you in an interview is, so, what do you know about JP Morgan? Or what do you know about CenturyLink? Or what can you tell me about Sherwin-Williams? You need to have something to go on, some information. And that can be as simple as just spending, 15, 20 minutes browsing through the company's website, because all of that information is going to be there. If it's a publicly traded company, it might not hurt to take a little peek at their annual report for multiple reasons. One, it just gives you some extra information to kind of spew back at the interviewer when they ask you for stuff. But secondly, it can also let you know, how strong or how weak this company is, because as exciting as an interview is, you don't want to interview and take a job with a sinking ship. So you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to make sure that this company is going to be around in 5 or 10 years. Also, look at their corporate profile. That can be available at www.yahoo.com/finance. Also, look at recent news, press clippings, press releases. That's a big thing. Companies like to see themselves in the news for good things. So that make sure that, for instance, with CenturyLink, they're adding, 800 positions. They're building a whole new facility out there, an extra add-on. Knowing little things like that is key for an interview setting, because it'll probably come up at some point. Also, this is a really big thing. Look at their philanthropic, I think I got it right, and their community involvement. And the reason I say this is that can be a key to a great talking point. If you are investing say you're in the Greek system, and you're investing a lot of time in, I don't know, say the United Way. Well, it may pay dividends if you do some research and realize that this company that you're interviewing with, their main nonprofit organization that they donate a lot of their company finances to is also the United Way. What that does is that's going to create a little bit of a connection between you and that interviewer, because it shows that your mindset and you're putting your time into some of the same things that this company is. So automatically, that kind of shines a positive light on you. So, it's worth it to take a peek. Also, research their corporate history and the name. And last but not least, and probably honestly the most important thing, talk to people that work there. Talk to people that are currently working there, maybe people who have worked there in the past, because they're going to give you the honest, bare bones truth about that company. Because believe me, the company's not going to tell all their dirty little secrets on the company website. They're not going to air any dirty laundry. And they're not going to tell you, how weak a company may be on their website. But when you get to talk to people that work there, you're going to really find out, is this a company that I'm going to be comfortable working with? Is this a company that values their employees? Also, a little bit more homework. Know the company's competition. It never hurts to know a little bit about some of the other companies that you may be going to marketing battles with, or some of the other companies that are selling very similar products as the company that you're going to be working for. Also, study analyst reports. How is that industry doing as a whole? And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Make sure that this is a stable company. I mean, as competitive as the job market is, and sometimes as hard as it may be at times to get an interview, you would hate to get on with a company and then a year and a half later the company folds and you're right back into the job market. So make sure that you're doing your homework to make sure that company is a strong company. Also, get to know the industry terminology well enough to use it, especially in an interview. A lot of us that really won't be applicable, but for maybe our computer science or computer information systems, a lot of our healthcare professionals, they have a very distinct lingo and their own kind of terminology. They use a lot of short, acronyms to take place of some of their big phrases. So just make sure that you're familiar with that, because you just never know what the interview setting may be. They may bring up some of that terminology. Well, tell me about such. And I mean, if you can't carry on a conversation in their terms with them, it's not gonna make for a great interview session. I can tell you that much. You want to research the position itself. know the exact job title and the titles of the related jobs. This is kind of a personal story of mine, but I had an interview. I was in Little Rock working as an intern at Iberia Bank, and I got an interview for a full-time position at HP, Hewlett Packard. They have a large facility there in Conway. And went through the phone interview process, did really well. They invited me in for an actual interview for this position. I can't remember what it was, but I knew I was going to interview for this job. It was a very specific title. So I did some research, probably not as much as I should. I was still pretty young, but I prepared as best I could. So I get there, meet everybody. They bring me into the room, and it's me and like 9 interviewers. It's the department head and like his assistant head, the person whose position I would be filling was in the interview, which was kind of awkward, but they wanted their opinion on it. And then there was another department head from another department that we would work closely with, and there was just some other associates in there. So, they start with the typical, tell us about yourself. And then they're like, well, how do you feel that you would be able to, help Hewlett Packard in this position? So I go into my spiel, and I'm talking about how I can assert myself and be this great such and such, whatever it was. And I'm starting to get a lot of really blank stares around the room, and nobody's really writing anything, and there's not a lot of feedback. And I started noticing people like looking at each other, kind of like whispering under their breath. I'm like, okay. So I finished my question. And the lead guy that walked me in is like, Mr. O'Neill, you do realize that you're actually interviewing for this position today, right? And of course, it wasn't the position I was told I would be interviewing for. So all of a sudden, I was just kind of like, well, no, I'd been told I would be interviewing for this position. So needless to say, it just got really awkward. I really just wanted to get up and leave, but at that point, I just kind of winged it. It was terrible. Like, I just wanted to leave and like go home and cry. It was bad. So long story short, make sure that you get confirmation on what you're going to be interviewing for. Ask for the names potentially of the interviewers. And we'll kind of cover that a little later. Again, we talked about that. Know the specialized jargon, especially for the fields that it's used in. Also, look at similar positions at other companies. You can do this just simple Google search of average salaries for such and such position. Because you want to have that in your back pocket. In a first interview, you never want to bring up salary. As the interviewer or interviewee, you never want to bring up salary. But there are cases where they'll bring it up, and you want to have the information in your back pocket because you don't want to lowball yourself, but then you don't want to throw a number out there that gets you laughed out of the room as well. So make sure that you do a little bit of research, find a nice either regional or national average for what that position should be paid, and know and take value in yourself. Don't sell yourself short. You've come here, you've got a great education. Hopefully you'll have some good experience by the time you leave. So don't feel like you have to take this super low number just to get this job. Ask for what you feel like you deserve, but also make sure it's reasonable. And then this is what I was talking about earlier. Research your interviewer. Sometimes they'll tell you who's going to interview you, sometimes they won't. But it helps to know. If they'll tell you who it is, just Google search them. I know it sounds a little creepy. You don't have to search like their personal life or whatever, but at least know who they are. Sometimes if you can at least just see their face, it'll make you more comfortable. Because then you don't have that at the back of your mind, like, well, what's Mary going to look like? Is she going to look like this? Or what's Steve going to look like? That way, when they walk in the room, like, oh, okay, that's Steve. I remember his picture. Hey, Steve, welcome. Thank you for having me. And also, you just never know. Sometimes you might have similar interests to that interviewer. For instance, I really enjoy hunting. Tomorrow's the bow opener, and I won't be at work. So, but if you do a little bit of research and you find out that Michael, the interviewer, also really enjoys hunting, well, that creates an instant connection between you and that interviewer. It gives you a talking point. It gives you something to ease into the interview, because in almost every interview, they're going to small talk you for 5-10 minutes before the actual interview starts. So anytime you can do a little bit of research, figure out a little something about that interviewer, and create some talking points, it's just going to make things go a lot smoother. All right, so be aware of the specific type of interview. Is it going to be structured or unstructured? Structured, you know what a structured is. probably everyone in this room at some point will go through a very structured interview. It's where they ask you a question and you respond back. They ask you a question and you respond back. And unstructured is almost just more like a conversation. Some interviews are like this. It's almost more of just a, hey, let's just get to know each other type interview, where they're really more assessing who you are, and kind of almost, you're assessing your personality, your character, things of that nature, maybe not so the knowledge aspect. That's more of a structure. That's where they're asking you a specific, how would you deal with this situation? What would you do in this? Have you had experience with this? Where an unstructured is more just, hey, just tell me about yourself. What do you enjoy doing? Okay, well, you grew up in Arkansas. What did you think about that? How was growing up in Arkansas? Stuff like that. So, try your hardest to figure out what that's going to be. Also, group or stress interviews. That's what I had at HP. Mine was a group and obviously a stress interview. But a group interview is typically going to be, you and it could be anywhere from 2 to, 9, 10 interviewers in the room. And a lot of times these are going to go hand in hand, because a stress interview is where it's going to be multiple interviewers, and their goal is to try to make you crack, honestly. So that's where, one person's going to ask you a question. As soon as you finish, the next person down from them may ask you a question. And then when you finish, that person, what they're trying to do is they're trying to assess, how does this candidate handle a stressful situation? How are they going to, are they going to succeed in a stressful situation, or are they going to kind of crumble? That's what they're trying to see. And also, they're really trying to test your knowledge, because when you get in a stressful situation like that, if you know what you're talking about, it's going to show. If you don't, it's going to show. So be aware of these. I wouldn't really stress, though. I promise a lot of these are going to be more like upper level when you try to start moving up into a company. Very rarely are you going to run into this as a first initial interview to get into an organization. I just got really unlucky with HP. But another big form, especially today, that's really growing in popularity is video, because it's cheap. Back in the past, before we had the internet, companies had to buy, if you wanted to go and interview in San Francisco, they had to buy a plane ticket, and they had to put you up in a hotel room, and they probably a lot of times would give you a per diem, and they'd pay for your meals. Nowadays, they can hook up on Skype. Y'all can do a 2-hour interview, and it virtually costs them nothing. So a great way to prepare for this is to come and do that interview stream that I talked about, because it's the exact same format, and it will kind of help you get used to that, because it's totally different doing it in video as opposed to doing it in person, because a lot of times it's harder to read some of the nonverbal cues. You're realizing they're only watching you from here up, so if you're a hand talker, you can't talk with your hands, which I am. But it's something that does, it's just different. So make sure that you kind of that you mentally prepare yourself for that. Also, telephone interviews. A lot of companies like to do this. They'll do it, especially an initial interview will usually be a telephone interview. And again, that's just going to be a basic, tell us about yourself, because all that telephone interview usually is, they're just trying to see, does this person fit with our company? Does their personality match? Do they seem like somebody that we would like to work with? So a lot of times they're not going to ask you really, really tough stuff over the telephone. It's going to be more of just, let's just get to know each other. Then if they like you, they may either do a virtual or a video, or they may actually bring you in for an in-person. Now that you know about the company and the industry and the position, do you actually know about yourself? All right. The interviewer has read over your resume, because your resume basically speaks for you. Your resume is you in their office, because you can't go and sit down and introduce yourself and, hey, this is all I have to offer. So that's why you have to make sure that you have a really good resume. But the interview, that's all the interviewer has to go by. That's all that they know you by, is that piece of paper. So make sure that you know what's on that piece of paper. So many of us, myself included, have made the mistake of doing a great resume and we send it off, and then it comes time for the interview and we forget what's on our own resume. And I promise you, they're going to ask you questions from your own resume. They're going to talk about, well, it said here that you picked up this skill and this skill at this job. How did you do that? How did these skills come about? How did you develop these? So make sure that you sit down and you look at it, and also make sure that you look at it from his or her point of view. And we'll kind of talk about that here. imagine some of those tough questions that they may ask. Y'all probably won't have that issue, especially coming right out of school. You don't have to stress too much about time gaps in your employment because they understand you're a student. You know, when you come to college, you are a student first. So, you know, if you don't have a job for those 4 years, it's going to be okay because there's other ways that we can build your resume up. But especially once you get older, you know, at my age or my director's age, you know, if you have like a 5-year gap where you haven't worked and you're 45 years old, that I promise you they're going to ask that question. Well, it shows here you haven't worked from 2008 to 2013. Can you tell me why? So you've got to make sure that you prepare yourself. But like I said, as a recent college grad, that's less of an issue. Also, make sure that you are constantly updating that resume. Constantly. If you join a new organization, or if you're in an organization and you promote up and you're an officer in that organization, or if you are working at a job and they promote you to the next level, make sure that day, go home, update it. Because so many of us forget, and then we start scrambling like the day before we realize we need to get this application in, and we leave out so much good information. So make sure that you're keeping that up to date as best you can. Also, you can consider preparing an employment portfolio. Typically, they contain a resume, and these are really good for career fairs. I will say that. These are great to have at a career fair. But it'll have your resume, it'll have a reference page. Also, as always, be sure to ask your references before you use them. Just a simple email letting them know that you're going to use them as a reference. Any recommendation letters that you may have, any certifications or other proof of training or status. This is great for, you know, the healthcare. You know, they've got to get like CPR certified and all this other kind of stuff. So any of those certifications are for the teachers. We have an education majors career fair every spring. They always include their teaching certification in there, all that kind of stuff. Also, relevant examples of your work. This one may not really be applicable to everybody, but this is great for, you know, graphic design or photography. It's always good to have some examples of your work. Make it professional looking. Don't just throw it in a little manila envelope or manila folder. You know, go splurge a little bit. Go to the bookstore. Buy a ULM folder, a nice maroon folder or something. I mean, for $5, I don't know how many you get, but it'll go a long ways. It'll look a lot better coming in a nice folder than just a manila envelope or just stapled or paper clipped together. And also don't forget to present it to the interviewer. You know, if you're going to take the time and the effort to put all this together, it does you no good if you finish the interview and you walk back out with it. So make sure that at the end you're like, hey, I actually have a portfolio that I'd like to just leave with you if that's all right. I mean, they're not going to say no. So leave it with them. And also, like I said, that's just going to be one extra step that'll probably make you a more desirable candidate than that next candidate that they were talking to. Also, personal preparation continued. So prepare your qualifications with the job description. How do your skills fill the company's needs? This is a huge one, and I talked about this a lot, especially in the resume course. But you know, if you are an extrovert, you probably don't want to be stuck doing lab work 40 hours a week by yourself in a cubicle, because you're going to hate it. You're absolutely going to hate that. Just like if you're an introvert, you probably don't want to be a salesperson, because you're going to have to be out shaking hands and meeting new people and talking and getting to know, you know. It's going to be tough for that personality. So make sure that the skills that you possess and the knowledge that you have are you know, that you can make them, you know, apply to that position that you're applying for, because that's the biggest turnoff, especially in an interview. If they get you in there and they're asking you these questions about some of the stuff that position's going to have to do, and it becomes very obvious that you won't be able to do it, you're not going to get the job. So make sure that you can do what they're asking that position to do. And that's as simple as make sure you read what they're asking that position to do. You know, these days, job descriptions are great. I mean, they bullet point out, they will be expected to do this, 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 this. Make sure that you know how to do that. You know, if there's a specific computer program that they're gonna ask, you know, that person to run, make sure you're familiar with that computer program, because they're gonna ask you questions about it. And if you can't answer them, you're not gonna get the job. So make sure that you've prepared yourself. Also, prepare some questions that you would like to ask the interviewer. Make sure they reflect your knowledge of the company. Don't ask about salary benefits. We kind of covered that, but just some great questions, just general questions. When I'm working with students and they come in, they're like, I don't know what to ask them. I mean, just simple things of, what's your, you're asking the interviewer, what's your absolute favorite thing about working for this organization? Why do you get up in the morning and come into work? What gets you excited about working here? Or, where do you see this company growing in the next 5 or 10 years? Because they may turn, during the interview, they may ask you, well, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? Well, you can kind of turn it back on them and say, well, where do you see the company in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see us growing? Do you see this department growing? So those are just two very simple, quick questions. Another great thing is during the actual interview, make sure that you take a piece of paper in there, and if they bring up something that maybe you're not super familiar with, just jot a quick note to yourself and come back to it when they ask you about questions. Say, well, you talked about this, and although I know about that, I'm not super familiar with that, and I was just wondering if you might be able to explain that a little bit more to me. So it's not hard, but the biggest thing is don't go in there with nothing. When they turn that over to you, have a question, have something to ask them, because that's a great way to show that you've been engaged in this interview and that you've soaked up what they've been talking about. So make sure you have something. Don't just don't be like, well, I'm good. Thank you for your time. I've got to go. Also prepare yourself emotionally. Think of this interview as a two-way street. It's a chance for you to find out if you want the job. Because honestly, sometimes you'll interview for a job and you're excited and you're pumped and I got the interview, and you get in there and they start talking about really what this job entails, and you kind of think to yourself, that sounds really boring. I don't want to do this at all. But you wouldn't have known that without going to the interview. So make sure that you're assessing that job as well. And it's also a chance for the employer to find out, if you're what they need, if you're what they want for this job. So look at it that way. Obviously it's a stressful experience for you, but it's a stressful experience for the interviewer as well. It really is, because the decision that they make, that candidate that they bring in, it's going to cost that company money, because they're going to have to send them to training, and they're going to have to develop them, and they're going to have to pay them. So it's a big deal for the interviewer as well, because, if they make the wrong hire, if they make a mistake, if they pick up the wrong person, it could mean their job. So it's a stressful thing for both people. So just remember that. Like we talked about early on, remember someone thought enough of you to ask you to come in. Your resume was obviously put together really well. You've got good experience, or you have some job applications or some skills or the knowledge base that they're looking for. So you have a realistic shot at this. I can tell you this, if you get an interview with a company, for the most part, especially the initial interview, I would venture to say you are probably one of, I would say maybe 10, and that's on the high end. Some places you're probably one of maybe 4 or 5. So you have a really realistic shot of getting this job. It's not just a shot in the dark. Like, you're one of their top candidates. So remember that. Also, always remember, if for some reason this interview doesn't work out, there are going to be other interviews. Always learn from every interview you take. The interviewer was once in the hot seat, just like you. So we kind of talked about that earlier. And also, I talked about this earlier. Your interviewer has a life outside of work. Work is not their life. And if it is, that's kind of sad. But be prepared to connect on multiple levels. Y'all may cheer for the same, professional team, NFL team or MLB team, or y'all may have parents or something that went to the same university, or there's always something that you can find to talk to them about. Maybe y'all grew up in similar places. Maybe you're from the same place. Who knows? But that's stuff that you're going to learn through that small talk. And any time that you can find just something to connect with them with, that makes you a more memorable candidate. Because at the end of the day, because they're going to see, anywhere from 8 to, maybe 12 people. So at the end of the day, when they sit down and they're talking to their associates, well, how'd your day go? Well, I talked to 3 really good candidates, and one of them was actually from my hometown. They were really interested. We had a great talk. So that right there, just those little things help make you memorable. And at the end of the day, that's what you're going for. You want to be memorable. All right, so a little bit more preparation. All right, plan your appearance. Make sure that you look the part. I cannot stress that enough. Like I said, all they know you by is your resume, is a piece of paper. So when you walk through that door, you need to impress them. So guys, no matter the position, unless obviously in some instances they do have, I guess, dress specific, but I always say no matter what job, just wear a suit and a tie, look the part, look professional, impress them. You know, make sure that you're comfortable in your interview clothes. That's probably the biggest thing. If you can't breathe, or if it hurts when you sit down, like, it's just going to make for a really bad experience for you. And it's probably going to make a bad experience for the interviewer because they're going to see how uncomfortable you are. Make sure that you are immaculately clean, you're neat, your fingernails, your hair, your shoes. Go get a haircut before the interview. Make sure you polish your shoes up. Look good. Avoid strong scents like cologne or tobacco smoke. If you're a smoker, just try your very best to not smoke before you go in. You can smoke the pack when you leave, but just don't smoke before you go in, because you just never know. That could be a huge turnoff for that interviewer. And you know, as unfair as it may be, that could be the one deciding factor between you getting a job or not. Same with colognes. Just go light. You know, don't smell like you bathed in it. Avoid heavy makeup or excessive jewelry, because at times it's just a distraction. Also, I will say this, you know, when you're talking about being conservative, especially for the ladies, just make sure for the male interviewers that you don't offer any distractions. And I'll just leave it at that, but just make sure everything is covered up and tucked away. All right? So practice. So, all right, so you can ask a friend, a professor, one of us, Career Connections staff, to do a pretend interview, just a little mock interview. You can also come in and do the interview stream, which we've talked about, another great tool. Also, watch that video and just critique yourself. You know, if you aren't making good eye contact, write it down, because that's a key point. You need to make good eye contact. If you have distracting mannerisms, if you're using a lot of fillers, I mean, everybody is going to use fillers. There's no way around that. But if every other word out of your mouth is or yeah or you know, make sure that you're watching that. Also, watch for your bad posture or poor body language. You want to you want to seem confident. If you're sitting in your chair and you're just kind of slumped over, you know, it just doesn't look confident. So you want to present yourself as, I'm confident, I know what I'm doing, I know how to do this job, and you should hire me. So it's day for the big interview. Plan your arrival. Make sure that you've given yourself more than enough time, especially in larger cities because of construction, traffic, things of that nature. You may even, if you have time the day before, just do a quick dry run. See how long it actually takes you to go from your home to where you're interviewing at. Around here, it's not as bad, but you still every now and then have to account for wrecks or traffic, especially going over the river. If flying, be sure to carry your bag on board, because you don't want to get to your destination and you don't have a bag. So make sure that you bring your clothing in your check bag or in your carry-on. Prepare your clothing. Make sure that everything is clean and pressed. Wash it. Take it to the dry cleaners. Make sure it looks good. Prepare your carry-ins, your professional-looking portfolio, notebook, pens. No purses, no cell phones. It's just too much extra baggage, and the cell phone is like the number one turn-off. Like if by accident you brought it in there and it goes off in the interview, it's just not going to end well for you. So just leave it. Also, plan to go alone. You don't have to bring your friend. You can have them drop you off and tell them just to meet you back in an hour, because it just looks bad to have somebody just sitting in the waiting room, you know, waiting for you while you're in your interview. It's just kind of awkward. And the same goes with children. You know, find a quick babysitter or something for the day. All right, so now it's time. It's day of the interview. Use the social skills, beginning with the people in the office. And I can't stress that enough. Your interview starts from the moment you step out of your vehicle at that place, because you never know who's watching you. Your interview may be watching the parking lot. So you have to be exceptional to everybody, like the janitors, the front desk receptionist. You're top notch the whole way through. Introduce yourself, maintain eye contact, give a good firm handshake. Don't break their hand. but don't give them these. There's one guy at my church, and I'm not gonna name any names, but he gives. I call it like the dead fish handshake. Is the most like I love him to death, but I can't shake his hand because it's literally just like, I can't even talk about it. It's weird. Anyways, seriously, just a nice firm handshake. Just display yourself with confidence. Walk in confidently. Don't walk in like I'm gonna own it. But just you don't want to look meek. You want to look like, I know what I'm doing and I'm here to get a good job. Also, a big thing: don't sit until you're invited. I know it sounds really silly, but it's a show of respect. So, you come into the room, hey Tom, it's nice to meet you. Hey Chris, hey Susie, go back to your chair. Most of the time, without hesitation, we'll be like, oh, hey Kyle, have a seat. But, it's just a show of respect. So just wait until you're invited to sit down. And like we talked about, be ready to make a little bit of small talk with them. This counts as part of the interview because look, let's be honest. When they're interviewing people, they're looking for somebody that they can talk at the water cooler with. They're looking for somebody that's going to relate to them, somebody that's going to be in their fantasy football league or whatever. They're looking for somebody that's personable. Obviously, there may be another candidate that is, educationally or knowledge-based wise, maybe way out of your league. But, if you're personable and if you show that you're determined and you're hard, you're willing to put in the work, and you're willing to be a good coworker, that's going to a lot of times stand out way more than somebody who is incredibly intelligent, but they literally, you can't carry a conversation on with them. That's what they're looking for. They want somebody that they like because they know they're going to be spending more time with this person probably than their own family. Because honestly, when you get out into the working world, and I can speak to this, I see my boss, Roz, more than I see my wife. Because we're here all the time. And so that's what they're looking for. They need somebody that they're going to relate to, that they're going to be maybe not friends with, but somebody that's not going to annoy them, that they're going to want to punch every day when they walk in the office. So that's what I'm talking about, is just be ready to be yourself and just, be the best version of yourself. And that's what we're talking about. Be honest, but diplomatic, brief and witty, never silly or obscene. If you can get a chuckle out of them, that's great. But, don't be heavy on the jokes because, it's not a stand-up comedy hour. Like, they want to know what you know. But if you can get them to crack a smile or you can get a laugh out of them, that's great. Because that's just going to make everything a lot more comfortable for everybody. All right, so the interviewer will tell you about the company and the job. So listen, they're going to go with, hey, at JP Morgan, we pride ourselves on this. So make sure, you're jotting down notes. And listen, because that's the biggest thing. They want to know that you're engaged. If you're kind of sitting there and like you're just kind of staring at them, like it just gets awkward after a while. But B, they want you to be engaged. Also, don't interrupt them, but don't be afraid, to ask a question during an interview. If they're explaining something, let them finish their statement, but then you can be like, yeah, actually, we covered that in one of my econ classes, but I was wondering if you might actually be able to go into maybe some specifics on how that works here at JP Morgan. So, stuff like that. Focus. As you answer your questions, remember that your main concern is to show that you're qualified. If you're asked a difficult question, it's okay to stop for a moment. And that's another big question I get with students coming in for interviews. And what do I do if they ask me a really hard question? Well, it's okay to say, wow, that's actually that's a great question. Can I have just a few seconds to kind of gather my thoughts before I answer that? That's okay. That is totally okay. Some people think, oh, no, you can't do that. It's a faux pas. You can't stop in an interview. No, you can, because I promise you, they would rather give you those 5-10 seconds to come up with a correct answer than for you to just blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. Because a lot of times it's probably not going to be the best answer, and it's probably not the best answer that you want to give them. So it's perfectly understandable, perfectly okay to say, hey, can I just have a quick second to kind of gather my thoughts? Don't lie in an interview. Please don't lie. Don't lie. Don't lie for multiple reasons. Don't lie because if they like you, they're going to research you, they're going to dig deep, they're going to talk to your references, and they're going to find out that you don't know what to do, or you don't know how to do what you said you did, or you didn't do what you said that you did. Another thing, if you tell a little white lie during the interview process, and they start asking you, oh, so you do have some experience in this. Oh, okay. Well, tell me how you do this, 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 and this. And then all of a sudden you're like, I think you do this. It's going to become pretty obvious in about 10 seconds that you have no idea what you're talking about, that you just lied straight face to them, and in their mind that interview's probably over. So just be honest, and it's okay if something comes up and you don't have any experience in that. Just say, actually, I really don't have the kind of experience that I wish that I did, but I'm hoping that through a position such as this, that I'll be able to get some of that experience. It's just, kind of think on your feet, think on your toes. Also, keep the spotlight on what you can do for the company, not what the company can do for you. Just like the JFK speech. Always think about, what can I do for the company? How can, that's what you're trying to show them. You're trying to be like, this is who I am, and this is why you need to hire me, because I can do this for your company, and I can do this, and I can help y'all with this, and I can help drive these numbers. That's what you're trying to do. It's not, I think it'd be great to get on JP Morgan because, my eventual goal is to be a broker there on Wall Street. And I believe that JP will be a great, way to get in. You're not trying to explain it like this job is a stepping stone for you. All right. So don't ever come across that way. Be positive, be enthusiastic, be friendly, and don't forget to ask for the job. I always tell, my wife just got done doing a slate of interviews, and I always told her, the last thing I'd say before we hung up the phone, before she go in, I'd be like, ask him for the job. Make sure you ask him, because that just shows that, hey, like, I want to come work for you. At the end of the interview, hey, thank you again, Chris. It's been great. I appreciate you taking the time. I just want to let you know I want to come work here. I really want this position because I think that not only is this company a great fit for me, I'm a great fit for this company, and I have so much that I could offer to y'all, and I really hope that you'll give me that opportunity. That speaks volumes as opposed to just saying, all right, well, Chris, hey, thank you for your time. Hope to hear back from you soon. You leave the room. Like, just letting them know, like, I want this job. I have a passion to have this job. That will carry so much weight. Also, when it's time to leave, though, it's time to leave. All right? When it's time to go, you can give your little quick spiel about how you want the job, thank everybody, but then it's time to bounce. You're not going to stand there. All right. Well, I really appreciate the time that we've had today, and I really hope that I get to hear from y'all soon. And this has been great. I really appreciate it. All the time. It's, hey, Chris, Tom, Mary. Hey, it's been great. Thank you so much. I really love this position, and I really hope that I get a chance to hear back from you soon. Thank you again for your time, and you're gone. It's super short, it's quick, and a lot of times they're going to walk you out. Usually they'll have somebody that will kind of escort you out. All right, so after the interview, be cordial to the people on your way out. And I can't stress that enough. Just as you were nice going in, nice going out, because you'll be surprised how many of these larger corporations, the first person they're going to walk up to after you leave the building is the receptionist. They're going to walk up and they're going to be like, hey, June, what did you think about Kyle? She'll be like, well, he was an exceptionally nice young man. He greeted me. He was very professional. He made me smile. I felt very comfortable around him. I would love to see him here every day. I'd love to have him here with our company, as opposed to, hey, June, what did you think about Steve? He was very rude to me. He didn't even speak to me. He was very short-worded. Things of that nature. So you'd be surprised how many other people outside of the interview room are assessing you. So make sure that, even the janitors you're walking through, hey, how are you today? I hope you're having a great day. Don't be goofy about it. Hey, how are you? It's great to be here this morning. But just be genuine. Just, hey, I hope you're having a great day. How are you this morning? I hope you're, the weather's crazy, just stuff like that. But just be nice, because you would be shocked at how many people outside of that interview room that they talk to regarding you. Also, take time to review the interview, make notes of what you can improve on. Every interview is a learning experience. You can learn something from every interview you go on, and make sure that you take notes when you get home. This question tripped me up. I struggled with this. This was a great answer. Need to remember this. Assess, and at the very end, assess, do you even want the job? Because like I said, there may be an interview you go on, halfway through the interview after hearing what this thing is, you're like, said, this is not for me. I don't even want to do this. So make sure that you realize, because just because a job is offered to you, you don't have to take it. Last but not least, write a cordial, brief thank you note and try to get it in the mail within 24 hours if you're still interested. I can't stress that enough. Nowadays, you can send an email, because I know some students have been like, well, I don't have a physical address to send it to. And I do understand that. So if you have to, you can send an email, but a handwritten thank you note carries so much more weight. Even if you just have to send it to that company headquarters, attention, Maria Ballard, but a handwritten thank you note will carry so much more weight. Just to say, Maria, I just again want to thank you so much for taking the time to bring me in. I thoroughly enjoyed having the opportunity to speak with you and learn more about this position. I really have a passion for this career field, and I have a passion for working with CenturyLink. Once again, I thank you for your time. I really hope to have the opportunity to come back and work for you in the future. Thank you, Kyle O'Neill. Just something very short and sweet, but I promise you, when that person gets that handwritten thank you card from you and they don't get anything from the other people, tell me that's not going to weigh a little bit on their mind when they're coming time to make a decision, okay? So I'm just saying, if you can't get an address, it's okay to send an email. Again, keep it short, but if you can find an address, I'm telling you, that little handwritten thank you card will, a lot of times it can win them over. It really can. I promise you. So, one of the last slides. These are the don'ts. These are the things you got to remember not to do, okay? Don't show bad posture or body language. Don't look like you're unhappy to be there. Because if you're unhappy to be there, they're going to be happy to escort you out, because they don't want you there either. Don't forget to smile, because smiling creates comfort. If you're smiling during the interview, it's showing, hey, I'm comfortable here. I'm at peace. We're working through this. Don't overdo it. Like I was saying, don't just sit there in the interview and you're just kind of like. But smile. If they say something funny, it's okay to laugh. Like I said, if you can get them to chuckle a time or two, that's good too. Don't interrupt. I talked about that, but don't interrupt. It's just a show of respect. Don't blame poor performance on anybody. Your former employees, teachers, that's just a no-no, because you never know who that person knows. You may trash a former boss that goes to Sunday school with this person, or you may trash a former boss that they're going to go have drinks with that person later. So don't trash former employees. They may be the scourge of the earth, and I've had a few in my past that you just hate them with every fiber of your being, but don't trash them. If you had to leave a company because of a dispute or whatever with somebody, just say, look, we just didn't see eye to eye on a few things, and I just thought it best to move on with my career at another location. Simple as that. Don't fail to have questions when asked. Like I said, that's just a big key. They want you to have some questions. I can't stress that enough. Don't let nervousness alter your actions. They know you're nervous. I don't need to cover that with you. They know that you're nervous, okay? A lot of times they sympathize with that. They know. And a lot of times they're going to go out of their way to make sure that you're not nervous. They're going to talk to you. They're going to try to calm you down before the actual interview starts. So just don't let it take over. If you start stuttering and you start freaking out in the interview, it's just not going to go well. So don't freak out in the interview. And don't forget to write that thank you note. Even if you're not interested in the job, still just let them know that you appreciate them taking time. Because you just never know. You may send that little handwritten thank you note and you decline that job, but then they know somebody at another company and they're like, because that's actually, that's how I got my job here. I interviewed for another position. I didn't get that job, but they actually called the director of Career Connections like, hey, we actually didn't hire this guy because we went with somebody who had a little bit more relevant experience than what we were looking at, but he would be great with y'all. He would be great because, they listed some stuff. So you just never know. Even if you have to decline that job, they may know somebody at another organization. They're like, hey, you need to call this person because we loved them. They weren't quite the fit that we needed here, but I think they'd be great at your organization. So just remember, it's the little things like that just go a really, really long way. You're going to be prepared. You're going to execute the interview, and you're going to do the proper follow-up. Last but not least, like I said, hey, who has actually been on a real interview? Like a real interview. All right? So, like I said, most of the time, your very first real interview is probably going to be that first one when you get out of school. So, just prepare, make sure that you're doing what you can now to get ready for that big one. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to come and see myself or Rosalind. That's what we're here for. It's what we're paid to do, is to help you guys, okay? All right, thank you guys. Appreciate y'all.
Go the distance without going the distance. Online learning with the University of Louisiana at Monroe. ulm.edu/eULM.